Jay, aside from having to do press, how's your day going so far?
I just got back from a trip to Colorado with my two daughters going skiing. So I would say the day is great. I left snow and I arrived home to snow. And I like snow, so I'm happy.
Well, we were connected by the wonderful folks at Dewar's, not Dewar's. I had to learn how to say the brand correctly in recent years. But how did that collaboration opportunity come about?
Well, they got in touch with me too, and they had this cool idea about writing some funny notes that people could use to send bottles for Valentine's Day. And to me, having always known about Dewar's and considered it that kind of suave, stylish brand that I saw in magazines growing up, and on certain bars in various homes, and kind of just thinking of it as a pretty soigné drink, and a good one. I was pleasantly surprised, and especially love the idea that they wanted to poke fun at various things going on in the culture and not be overly safe. And so it went from there, and it was a lot of fun. And I got to drink some more Dewar's 12, which I'll never complain about.
Right. So as you mentioned, the brand is synonymous with suave and stylish, and obviously they think that you're suave and stylish as well. Is there a lot of pressure to keep up the suave and stylish elements to what you do?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm trying not to make it seem like it's painful, because it plays into all the things that I like. So, to have an excuse to buy something is, as I tell my wife, I'm like, I got to buy this stuff because, I don't know, I have to look like this, right? It's my brand. Is that true? I don't know. I have a couple of closets full of clothes. I probably don't need a lot more, but yeah, I guess so. I mean, if I could speak in a way that I try to speak sometimes, is kind of not only thinking about my own predicament, but how it relates to other guys, and I mean, I think style changes all the time. Well, maybe fashion changes, style in some way gets influenced by fashion and other things, and therefore evolves. But as you get older, right, you don't dress like you used to dress, and I think a lot of guys probably struggle to figure out how to look, not only kind of professional and good, right for their job. So I'm certainly not speaking about being Harry Styles and be able to dress like a modern day Elvis. That's cool for him, but I don't think many guys can pull that off or would really want to. But they do want to look good, and they do want to look appropriate, and they do want to kind of look like they're inhabiting their station in life in a way that makes sense. So I don't think that's that easy. So, do I feel some pressure? If I feel pressure with all the things that I've seen and done, I can only imagine what a lot of other guys feel. So if I can be helpful, I hope I can be.
Do you have any rock band t-shirts amongst your closets?
Yes, absolutely.
But you have to bring them out at special occasions, right?
That's a cool question. I love vintage stuff. I really do. And I was born in West Texas, and I grew up in San Antonio. So San Antonio was a heavy metal, acropolis, man, in the 1980s. Like, that was a place where every hair band had to go. I particularly loved new wave music too, but I don't remember really feeling like you couldn't like all kinds of music at the time, even if you dressed like you were in Duran Duran, which I think I tried to do. But I saw all kinds of rock bands, and got mugged at a Quiet Riot concert downtown, and so I have some cred when it comes to rock t-shirts, man.
Any Van Halen shirts in that collection?
I don't have Van Halen, but I do love Van Halen, and strangely, there's a coincidence here. And flying back, we stayed at a hotel next to the Denver airport, and there was nothing on TV. it's one of those airport hotels, so you're just kind of at the mercy of cable, for God's sakes. And there was a great show on MTV. It was like just a documentary of the '80s rock bands, right? And there was a big thing about Van Halen, and it took me back, and I think those guys are great. And the controversy which lives on about Eddie Van Halen, going to the synthesizer instead of the guitar. So I feel up to date.
I self-promotion. I have a book on David Lee Roth coming out next year, and we're going to talk about that in there. But that segues me to you. You've written multiple books. What are you working on besides having just done this great Dewars collaboration?
I'm always trying to find the next thing, man. I mean, I'd say so much of the work of writing is finding the thing you want to write about and making a living in the meantime. So, what do? I try to make a living. I'm a consultant, I guess. I don't like the word, but I think of myself more as a kind of a digital content fixer. I've done some interesting tours of duty for unusual places like Bridgewater. I'm doing a number of things for the private bank at JP Morgan right now. So somehow I've become a guy who understands how to suddenly, over a few years, of deep immersion and economic and financial literature, has some grasp of how to talk about it in a way that grips people in digital newsletters and things like that. And so I do that. And I write on the side. I'm written for a number of different places. I kind of place the things where I think they'll do best. I did a big piece on Hemingway not so long ago for the Wall Street Journal because it was the anniversary of his suicide. And I've done return to writing poetry. I wrote a poem that was in the New Yorker not too long ago, and I write pieces for Airmail, Greg Carter's newsletter. So I'm lucky in the sense that even though it's kind of a high wire act to try to put those things together, as you probably understand, I get to kind of choose carefully, at least so far. I have pressure on myself for sure, but I kind of get to choose. If I really look at it and don't want to complain, I think I have to be pretty grateful that I have these opportunities and that I have interesting work that takes me into new realms and doesn't make me totally dependent on the media of the day, because I think it's a very, very tricky, in some ways scary place.
So it sounds like if you want to do it, or they're just paying you really well, you'll do it. Those are the two criterias.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I am part prostitute, part snob. I'm very careful about who I allow to pay me.
Well, when you think about it, when somebody like Ben Affleck goes, I'm going to do a superhero blockbuster kind of movie, and then one for me, and one for you, and one for me, that's your writing career, essentially. Yeah,
look, I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I just to like give some of these people a break for doing some of that stuff. Sometimes you look at that and you think, okay, enough superhero movies, right? So, getting paid. If somebody wants to pay me $20 million, maybe I'll just go to poetry after this. You know what I mean? I won't go back to keep the superhero part of my life. But I fall into a place where you weren't the person you were before. People respect you, but they don't really know, all the things that people would know about you if you were still in the realm you once, climbed to great heights. About learning new things. It's about dealing with people's scale. There's a real growth thing in it. I'm sure it is for those guys who even go, even if you go from Broadway and a Tony to like playing Batman.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a hell of a lot you have to learn and deal with that is not just a cinch. Well said. Well, the last thing I have for you before I let you go, what's your go-to of the Dewar's portfolio? Is it the 12? Is it the Japanese blended whiskey? Is there a favorite even? You know, that's a good question. I have not had them all, I have to say. Number one, I would be very attracted to the Japanese. I do think Japanese whiskey is fascinating, and I think the combination of, like, you know, a Scotch with a Japanese whiskey would be, you know, in terms of interpretation, would be pretty cool. I do really like the 12. I think that, you know, people who might look at blended whiskey and say, oh, you drink blended whiskey, as if you know, the great wines of Bordeaux aren't blends. You know, blend doesn't mean cheap or inferior. You know, and in some ways, single malt can be inferior if that one whiskey that they've created is not great. So, you know, every year you buy that label, it's supposed to taste as great as it did the year before. And I think that's what kind of Dewar's 12 is all about. You know, it is aged, so it achieves a certain amount of complexity, but it's reliable, and, you know, you can drink it, you can mix it, you can do all kinds of things with it, not feel like you're being silly. You know, if you have something that's like 50 years old and, you know, you put an ice cube in it and everybody laughs at you.
Paltrocast.